Hello. So, most of us were never taught how to deal with conflict, not at home, not in school, definitely not at work. But what do you do when things keep bubbling under the surface? When you're biting, you're carrying stress or dreading that one person on the team who grinds your gears. But what if conflict could help create deeper relationships, better leadership, and more connected teams? Whether you're working the shop floor or sitting in the boardroom, tension shows up, and how we deal with it can either build trust or quietly break it. So this is Healthy Conflict, the podcast where we stop treating conflict like a problem to avoid and start treating it like an opportunity for greater success. Because the best leaders, the ones people actually want to be with, they aren't the ones who shut conflict down. They're the ones who get good at tough conversations. This isn't just about a better communicator. It's about building cultures where people want to stay and grow and give their best. My name's Rash Shaheen, and I help visionary leaders step out of their daily firefighting and get into their zone of genius by designing cultures that thrive without without them. And you can find me on Rasha Shaheen at LinkedIn.
And I'm Rainey Martin, and I help entrepreneurs, leaders, and teams improve their bottom line by building workplaces that people love and customers never forget. I can be found at coachrainey.com.
Amazing, Rainey. So, Rainey, this is good. We're having a conversation this time, something that I know that you're excited to have, and it's about how do we normalize tension? How do we normalize conflict? And yeah, why are you excited about this one?
Yeah, I think what I love is the whole idea of totally changing our relationship to tension, to conflict, right? And this is part of it. Normalizing tension, making it not just okay, but almost welcome, giving an invitation to tension, right? We're taught to fear it, or at least we grow up fearing it, right? But the reality is that, just like we talked about in an earlier show, tension is just a signal that something meaningful is present. And leaders who normalize tension, they create cultures of trust and resilience and honest dialogue. And you know what that accomplishes, right? Psychological safety, which increases performance. And I mean, at the end of the day, often that's really what we're talking about, right? We're talking about healthy conflict and turning conflict healthy, but the purpose behind that in the world, in the corporate world, right, is to get high performance.
And I want to add to that, and high performance. When I was listening to you, really like tension, that's where the unknown is, that's where creativity lives. And I think that, like, especially now, I'm kind of getting a little bit obsessed with AI and kind of what like how we're going to kind of work with it, and the quality and the values that are going to really kind of rise up are going to be like, emotional intelligence and creativity, and that only comes with being fine with the unknown, being fine with tension. So moving forward, it is that kind of the messy middle that's going to allow businesses to really differentiate themselves from others and survive and rise to the top.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I absolutely agree. I think, you know, there was sort of this big shift over the last maybe 20 years, f- at least in businesses that are progressive and are always looking at new ways to improve. There was
Mm.
a big shift towards employee engagement and emotional intelligence, and COVID even gave that like even a stronger push when it was so hard to hire and recruit.
Mm.
And so businesses started really looking at what could they do to make themselves more attractive, right? But but lately, at least in America, there has been a pushback, right? That a push that looks like, we're employing you, and whether if you don't like it, leave, right?
Yeah.
But the reality is still that the businesses that get ahead of this, the businesses that are looking at employee engagement in a very real, very authentic way, those are the businesses that are going to end up successful, because
Yeah.
happy employees equals happy customers. We know that. We know that. All the research shows that.
Mm.
And so what we're talking about, right, is how do you ensure, I mean, happiness is a simplistic way of putting it, but how do you ensure a productive workplace, a workplace where people are happy to come to work? And
Yeah.
this is one of the ways, right? By making tension not a scary thing, because tension is a natural part of the workplace. It's a natural part of life.
Mm.
We have conflict in life, and so to teach the skills that make conflict, that take the charge out of conflict, that take the the scariness out of it, that's a powerful skill.
And I want to add to that, because really it's you know, and I know that you've mentioned this word before. It's changing the story around it. Like if you think about the words anxiety and excitement, right? Those are two different words, two different feelings, but they're very, very similar kind of physiological kind of sensations, you know? And if we change whenever we're feeling anxious and we just tell ourselves, actually, that's not anxiety, that's excitement, you know, our bodies believe it because it feels the same. So really, like it's the same conversation, like when we're feeling tense around kind of things, you know, that are happening in work. Well, how about changing the story?
Oh, Rasha, as you know, I love this concept. Absolutely right. Yes, yes. It's about changing our relationship to conflict, changing the story that we tell ourselves about conflict. Absolutely, absolutely. And that's thanks to Mel Robbins, of that concept that fear is so it almost indistinguishable from excitement. Yeah. and and like you said, our brains believe what we tell them to believe, and if we tell them, go ahead,
I
yes.
was going to say, you're right. I agree with you that they will, but only if they, like, for example, you can't tell your body to be calm when it's physiologically excited, you know,
Yes,
so excitement and anxiety, they work together because the symptoms are the same. But if you were telling it to be calm, it wouldn't believe you because the symptoms are different.
yes, absolutely. That's a different shift, right?
Yeah.
If you are trying to calm yourself um out of anxiety or out of overwhelm, that's a that there are different tools for that, and some, you know, work better for some people than others, and that's maybe a different conversation, though. Let's take a moment just to recognize that I was actually working with a group yesterday where I introduced this. Not that it's mine; it's not mine, but this group does have a lot, many of them feel a constant sense of overwhelm. And so I just introduced this tool of the 4-8 breathing, right? In through your nose for a count of 4, out through your mouth for a count of 8. And that's just a quick, not, doesn't have to be quick, but it's an easy,
Mm.
um, tool to try to shift out of that scary place,
Yeah.
if you're wanting to get out of that place. But yes, the other option, as we were talking about, is recognizing that it only takes a tiny, like, quarter inch shift to make anxiety into excitement, to make fear into excitement.
I've got a question for you, because I can imagine if I was listening to us talking right now, and I think part of me is like, well, where is there a line? You know, like where is there, like, you know, when it actually does become too much? You know
Mm,
what? Let's just say, like, I'm going to go a little bit extreme just to kind of help us see the line a little bit more. Let's say you're being bullied at work, or let's say, like, you know, is it okay for us to just say, oh, turn that into excitement? You know, like, I mean, that doesn't make sense there. Like it's stress, you know, and of course you're feeling stressed. So how do we, you know, how do we distinguish between when something is in our control, we can change it to excitement, like where potentially, you know, it's an internal story that that can shift the whole conversation for us, and get us into that thriving place, or actually when it is truly toxic, and maybe the decision is like it's probably better for us to kind of move.
I love that question. Yeah, yeah, and I feel like it's almost like a leading question because my natural response is, how do we do that? We go to Sage, right? We PQ it up, which translated means we do a short meditation, a breathing exercise. We do some take some moments to focus on our physical sensations, which brings us into the present and helps us get into that wisest part of ourselves, that our higher self. And we ask it, what is the right response here? What's the healthy, productive response here? Should is it in my best interest to shift this into excitement, or is it my best interest to set boundaries?
This is really interesting, because you know how I was talking about, like, actually we need, like, going from anxiety to excitement is one way, but actually what we're talking about now is really trying to get ourselves, and it's, it might not take a second, like, or it might not be as easy as going from anxiety to excitement, but we want to get to calm. We want to get to calm, because in that calm place, we've got to allow ourselves to get to our calm place, because that's where the best decisions are made. Because when they're made from fear, we probably don't know what's right or wrong for it. But when we're calm, which is what you're saying, getting, meditating or PQing it up or being present, when it comes from like a calm and kind of like quiet and loving space for us, we're giving ourselves empathy, we probably know the answer.
Exactly. Exactly. Yep. Yep.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Yeah, that's because of course every scenario is different.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
we're generalizing here when we're talking about, you know, normalizing tension. Like, a lot of the time tension can be normalized, and there is that small part where it's like, no, it's too toxic and you can do something about it. You can decide to leave. That place isn't good for
Yes.
you.
That's right. That's right. And it's an important point. Yes. So generally, what we are talking about is, how do you invite conflict? How do you process conflict in a healthy, productive way? But yes, we don't want to err on the side of toxic positivity, right? Even when it comes to conflict.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. At a certain point, sometimes the right thing is to set clear boundaries.
And the common denominator between both those things is we're not avoiding it. We're looking at it and deciding, you know, is this a place, should I stay or should I go, for example? Or actually, let's 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 address, let's kind of like, let's speak. Are you avoiding it to the point where you're not speaking about things that could solve and resolve and dissolve tension?
Right. Right.
Like,
Or
you can
right.
solve. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, we avoid tension for the same reasons that we talked about before, right? It's social conditioning. Don't rock the boat. We're afraid of discomfort. We're afraid of rejection. And we're afraid of blowing a relationship up.
Mm,
And the reality is that leaders in the workplace often model either suppressing tension or conflict, or escalating it, right? Going in like a bull in a china shop, as you've talked about previously, right?
yeah.
Either avoidance or aggression, right? But what's the middle ground? And what happens when you ignore tension, right? Ugh, what happens? Bad things happen.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. But if we can redefine it, we to redefine tension as, instead of it being conflict, it's potential.
Yeah. And then you
Yeah.
get brave to have the conversations, resolve conversations, allow for diversity of ideas, and,
Hmm.
you get creative that way. And, you get creative that way, and Yeah.
Yeah, I think um, one of the so I guess talking about how to normalize it, right?
Yeah.
How to communicate that tension is welcome here, and also recognizing, is this discomfort or is it an opportunity for growth?
Yeah.
So I was going to share with you a practice that I had when I was leading a team at one company I was at. We called it tea time. So twice a day, it was a pretty high pressure job, where we often actually didn't feel like we had time to go to the bathroom. Like, it was very, very high stress. But twice a day, we would take 5 minutes to have tea together. And so we'd each grab a cup of coffee or a cup of tea, and um, once a day, it was just a kind of a either a debrief or a downtime for 5 minutes to kind of catch our breath. And once a day, it was a conflict resolution tea time. It literally, we were practicing giving each other feedback so that when we had real feedback, I mean, it was always real feedback, but when we had um, feedback that might feel more scary, we already were in practice of giving feedback. So, for instance, at the very beginning, the first thing that we did was ask each other, how do we like feedback? And it's really interesting because sometimes we think we like feedback a certain way, but it turns out we don't really.
Yeah.
And the only way we find that out is by getting it that way repeatedly. But in any case, for instance, at that time in my life, it was a couple decades ago, um, my preference was to have a feedback sandwich, right? So
Yeah.
where you say, in fact, this was a running joke with this team, to this day. We joke about it. So for an example, what I would like is Rainy. I love your hair today. It looks so good. I don't know what you do with it. Um, I wanted to mention something is totally not a big deal, but when you did such and such yesterday, I felt really angry because I felt like you were leaving all the work to me. And I'd love it if we could get to a different place about that. But it's really not a huge deal. I'm not carrying it around. It's just something I thought it'd be good for us to touch base in on. Oh, and by the way, nice boots.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so the running joke with my team still is, hey, Rady, nice boots.
Love it.
But the point is, like, every day we practiced giving each other feedback, whether we had, serious feedback or not. It was we required each other to find something, no matter how small, to give feedback on, so that we were in the habit of giving feedback effectively and
Yeah.
productively and receiving feedback
Yeah. I think it's
effectively.
really, really brilliant. It's really clever. Really like, it's funny because like, like as an educator, it's something that I do with my students, like we have that, but I don't believe that I do, like the honest truth is I'm not sure if I do it like, if it's done kind of properly with like colleagues, where we have
Mhm.
like what you've just said, like kind of normalizing feedback in that way.
Mhm.
I think that is a perfect example of how you do normalize tension because, you know, you just address it straight away and you kind of address it in the small things. So when the big thing happens, it's just normal.
You already have the tools. You already have even the muscle memory
It
of
feels
how to.
familiar. It feels familiar. And
Exactly. And you've already worked out some of the bugs, right? Like I was saying, like the, two of my teammates were guys, and they felt like they like to have feedback direct. Just tell me what the problem is, and don't
yeah,
sugarcoat it. But
yeah,
it turned out, after they got feedback directly like that a few times, they realized they don't really like feedback that way.
yeah, yeah.
So you,
Sugarcoating is all about building the trust, isn't it? And it goes back to that, like, you want to, feedback, you can take it when trust is there. So it's like,
right.
whatever you do, the trust has got to be built, and the trust can't, like doing it regularly, and that's why it's a culture, not a one off. Then feedback can be, taken as opportunity then.
I mean, absolutely. That is the key, is establishing psychological safety, establishing trust. When there's trust there, when you trust that the other person cares about you and
Yeah.
isn't, it changes the whole relationship. It's like your equation, right?
Mm. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. Um yeah, and the opposite happens when it's not there, right? And the even the process of smoothing over tension is a way of damaging trust, right? Because what happens is when a leader jumps in to avoid conflict, right? To prevent it from exploding or from having people, whatever they're afraid, whatever the leader is afraid of, um, it just leaves that tension there and leaves it to fester and grow instead of meeting it head on, welcoming it, and using it as an opportunity, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and also kind of not you. What you're also saying is that you don't trust your team to be able to sort it out, to have the skill set and the emotional resilience and ability to sort it out. So you've just, stunted growth there by
Hmm.
going in and just trying to smooth it over.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
There's
exactly.
several messages. There's several messages being said there that, no, I don't want tension. We don't allow tension, and A, I don't trust that you're um, gonna, have the skills to sort this out yourselves.
Hmm.
And so then
Yep.
also what that does is then that puts the leader in a position where they're kind of then micromanaging and having to kind of like, they've now created a system where they're gonna be overwhelmed.
Right, right. And things, are likely to start happening that are the beginnings of creating a toxic culture, right? Like gossip and avoidance and passive aggression, things we've talked about before, that create a really unhealthy culture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
So
actually,
yeah,
sorry, what were you
no,
gonna
go
say?
ahead. No,
Well, I
no,
was
go ahead.
gonna say that like tension, like, it's when tension is there, it just means that like it means that something has touched us that we value.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
it's kind of, it actually means that, like, again, if we flip tension on its head as being something kind of positive, it just means that there's that people care, you know
Yeah.
and if you
That's
take
right.
that away,
Mm-hmm.
you don't allow
Mm-hmm.
that ownership and that agency, that autonomy, then that you are kind of like um sort of lowering the heat of people's passion for work.
Yes. Yes. Disrupting it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you want to talk about some really like specific ways that leaders can can shift their relationship with tension, like, or even just um communicate the invitation, so that the team feels that shift in the approach to tension.
Yeah. Well, you've definitely already given one beautiful example where you create that system of just talking about feedback, because really that is, tension really is like when like gets resolved when you communicate, when you talk. So you create it with your example, you've created a space for conversation and communication. So that's a definite brilliant one. Um, and I think that, like, just even just in conversation, just having kind of like, when you sense, let's say when you see two people talking and you sense the tension, rather than kind of shutting it down, you can kind of say something like, hey, this is really good, this is really exciting, I love this conversation, it's full of passion. Yeah, okay, when it gets resolved, let me know what happens. Enjoy.
Yes.
Wouldn't that be cool?
Yes. Wouldn't that be cool? Wouldn't that be cool? Yeah. Yeah. I was thinking much more mundane, like, like language that a leader could use, and like, there's some tension here, and that's not a bad thing. Let's
Yeah.
stay with it.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But I love yours. Yours is much funner.
Yeah, it's like treating tension like some an art, like it's like
Mhm.
great, it's like the paintbrush, let's get it out, let's create the conversation.
Yeah. 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 I love it. I love it. Yeah. Yeah. I think maybe other messages that leaders could be giving is, tension isn't the enemy. Silence around it is the enemy.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, and even like when like maybe kind of again setting the system of like from when you employ someone, when you employ like from when onboarding, you kind of can talk about it as part of the culture. So this is a culture that's really innovative, really creative, and that comes from kind of recognizing tension as and friction as part of our growth. And so like maybe even your job description as well,
Yeah.
so it's there in the policy, in the staff handbook.
Yeah. 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 It's embedded in the culture. Yeah.
Yeah, a celebrated value, and kind of like when it's a celebrated value, then kind of yeah, I think yeah, just then there are ways that you can kind of um, reward people,
Mm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
who resolve things in smooth ways, and come up
Mm.
with new ideas, reward innovation, and recognize, well, that the way to get to innovation is being able to have that messy middle. So there's some kind of that's another idea.
Right. That it's one of the values of the company, and the company rewards manifestation of their values. Yeah.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah,
Key culture building. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So I think those are some really good tips, and I think the main takeaway from this conversation really is like we're talking about normalizing tension, recognizing that tension is a signal, recognizing that actually when people are tense, it means that it's touching on people's values, and that there's like passion that you can draw out, and yeah, not being scared of it, and I'm kind of recapping, and these are the takeaways, and kind of just allowing yourself. Two things that I loved was checking in with yourself. There's and seeing, can I flip this anxiety towards tension into an excitement, but also kind of like allowing yourself to kind of like give yourself time to get calm. you know that could take a few hours, and in that space kind of check in with like the message that 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 you can read into within the scenario. Is it something that you can change yourself, or is it something that you need to move away from? But in terms of kind of normalizing it, my favorite one is your idea, where you just have feedback conversations every day for 5 minutes, totally
Mm-hmm.
normalizing it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Nice summary, Rasha. Thank you. That's great.
Yeah,
I love it. Love it.
brilliant.
Well, thank you for today. As always, very illuminating and interesting and fun. Um, so conflict doesn't mean that something's wrong. It means that something matters. And when you learn to handle it well, everyone wins. Your team, your business, and your own well-being. Stay steady, stay human. This is where real leadership begins. See you next time.